This is exactly when you should turn on a camera, when you look a mess like this. In case you couldn't tell already, I'm currently in the process of doing my makeup for the day. And I was watching some YouTube videos and have the house to myself, so I felt kind of yammery, so I figured I'll finish getting myself ready for the day while just talking about any old thing that I've been watching online lately and anything that happens to be on my mind about my own personal life. It's kind of a catch-up video. So let's get this situated real quick first. I've been watching a lot of TikTok content recently. I don't watch like the dancing videos and just like a lot of the sillier side. Like I watch some funny videos, but for the most part, I'm on like social justice TikTok and stuff. And something came up, a video yesterday, and it was interesting because I didn't really think about it until I watched this person's video. But to a certain extent, what this person had to say was true. I'm going to be using they, them because it wasn't someone that I follow or anything, so I'm not sure what their pronouns are. But what this person said is that they've noticed recently that a lot of people who have like Boomer and Gen X age parents, the parents, not all of them, and I wouldn't even venture to say a majority yet, but a lot of them are finally starting to actually recognize how screwed millennials and Gen Zers really are, and fuck knows for whatever happens after the Gen Zers. Like, I don't even want to imagine how hard life is going to be for those. They said something along the lines of, have you noticed lately that you'll be working like a 60-hour work week? So you're obviously not lazy, like you're working your ass off. You will be actively house hunting, getting like your home loan, securing all your documents you need, looking for a house. You absolutely cannot find something no matter how much you're pre-approved for, because there's always some kind of hang up. You go home, you say, I'm exhausted, my life is nothing but working so that I can afford my bills, I don't get to have any fun. I can't find a place to live because everything has been bought up by greedy landlords, and the landlords keep on jacking up the price, so I can't even afford where I've lived the last like 5 years or whatever. And they said, have you noticed that lately when you especially live with your parents and they're actually witnessing the hard work you're putting into it, when you have these breakdowns, they're finally starting to have this look across their face of, oh shit, they're absolutely right. We have brought a child into a really messed up world that at this point, can it even be fixed? And what do we do now? They actually are screwed. And it was interesting because soon after watching this TikTok, I had my weekly call with my parents, and my dad has actually gone as far in the past as to formally apologize to me for creating me. He said one day that if he knew that the world and this country were going to go downhill as much as they have, he never would have kept trying to have a kid. It also kind of went into like my own health stuff, but that's neither here nor there. But like the state of the world did come up in that conversation, and he was just like, back in the 80s when we were, first trying, things were kind of rocky, but it was nowhere near the state that it is now. And that, he feels awful that we have to deal with this. He's like, you guys are trying. Like, I recognize that you're trying. You guys all work really hard, but there is nothing left. And I was like, yes, exactly. That's the problem. We are still expected to work our lives away. We are still expected to put our all into these nothing, go nowhere jobs, or jobs that we didn't really want, but it happens to pay the bills. We're expected to basically put our health at risk just to work, because our work ethic is the only thing that matters about us. All of our value is placed on how much we can work, which is ableist too, but that's for another day. And at the end of the day, after expecting us to work so much and everything, we're doing it for nothing because there is nothing left. And people say, okay, well then why even bother going to work? There's nothing left. We recognize that. There's basically no reason for you to be going and getting a job. So why are you? And it's like, well, because for those of us who were on unemployment during the start of the pandemic, unemployment doesn't pay the bills. There's this bizarre notion, especially in American society, that I've noticed, that they seem to think unemployment, disability, Social Security, welfare, that all of this is just going to make it so that you never have to work again and all your bills are paid and you can just go on these giant Disney park trips or something. And no, if you are on disability, you're constantly terrified because if you work over a certain amount of hours, even by accident, you can lose your disability. If you make over a certain dollar amount at work, you can lose your disability, and it's very hard to get a second chance after losing it. Same thing with Social Security. If you're on Social Security because you need extra help, you can't have over a certain dollar amount, not even by a penny, in your bank account, or they cut you off. And that's only $2,000, and that may sound like a decent amount, but you have to spend it. It's not like you can just sit here and save up a nest egg to buy a house with it. You are basically essentially trapped. And the same thing goes with unemployment and welfare and all that stuff. The amount that you are given in unemployment and in welfare is not enough to properly live off of. You are in poverty. No one actively wants to be in poverty. No one deliberately puts themselves into a situation where they can't even afford their medical bills. It's horrible. And one of the big things that really resonated with me, well, technically all of it, but one of the things that's most recently prevalent in my life that this person brought up was the housing situation. Back in early January, maybe the second week of January, we got pre-approved for a home loan, and we were excited. We were pre-approved for $150,000. Almost everyone I know, their first time home loan was $90K, $100K if they were super lucky. And this was only 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. I'm not talking people who bought a house in the 90s. This is less than a decade ago that they only got approved for 90 to 100K. So everyone was like, well, cool, you're going to be fine. That's spectacular. Nobody gets that much for pre-approval for their first house. And I was like, yeah, cool. So we start looking. We hunt immediately after we're given that loan pre-approval. We see 6 different houses. We grow attached to a bunch of those houses only to have people outbid us. And these houses are only worth 80, 85K, mind you. People outbid us by $80,000 to $100,000. And I know why they're doing it. I know it's these giant companies who are trying to turn them into rental properties and stuff, but let's be real here. They're not going to want to rent them out forever. Eventually, they're going to want to sell them for more money. How are you going to make a profit off of what you've done? You've completely borked the housing market, not just for people like me who are looking right now, but forever. Because if 10, 12 years down the road, you decide, I don't feel like having this property anymore, it's more trouble than it's worth, because most of them are older, and you don't feel like taking care of anymore, let's sell it. No one is going to buy a house that is estimated to be worth maybe 90 to 100K for 250K. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to be worth their time, their effort, their money they're putting into it to do something like that. So it's just going to stay on the market and it's going to fester when someone else could have lived in it. They're also noticing that they've screwed themselves as well as all of us, because they're going, oh shit, we're buying up all these properties. We are buying them at a rate that we're going to have to jack up the rent to $1,500 a month. And nobody is renting these places out because they're taking one look saying this was clearly like not updated since like 1997 and it's small, it's not worth $1,500, so I am choosing to just not live here. So again, they're buying it up and it's just festering on the market. I've seen the same houses up for rent for over a year because the person refuses to knock the price of rent down because they can't, because of what they chose to buy the house for. And what's going to happen to people? There's so many people now who are living in homeless shelters, who are living out of their vans, and I know what's coming. It has come somewhat in other areas so far, but not everywhere yet. I know damn well that they're not going to punish the people who have screwed the market. They're going to punish us. That's what's going to happen. They're going to say, oh shit, there's all these houses just dying on the market right now. Nobody is buying them. Nobody is renting them. Everyone is living in tiny houses and everyone is living in like vans and buses. So what I predict is going to happen is in like no more than the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to start drafting all these bills that say that it is illegal to park anywhere on the side of the road. It's illegal to, go to campgrounds, anything, if it's not an actual RV. They're probably going to be like, if you're in a van, if you're in a bus, if you're in a tiny house in whatever, you can't go to like campgrounds or anything. You have to have an RV or it's illegal and you're going to get ticketed. They're going to make it basically, I bet, so that you can't legally park anywhere to sleep, so that you'll have to go back to renting. I know it's coming. Like, they're so predictable. It's not even this huge conspiracy theory or anything to feel that way, because they've done shit like this before in the past. Every time we start giving ourselves an inch, because they never will give us one, every time we start pulling ourselves up and making our lives better as just the working class, they pass laws to ensure that we absolutely have to rely on them. And this is something that I always educate people in other countries I'm friends with on, because unfortunately, a lot of people in other countries, even like European nations and stuff, still have this idea of America that everyone is rich, Republican, conservative assholes. And so it's like, no. Unfortunately, they're not even really the majority anymore. They're just that powerful and that rich that they can get away with this shit. And we can't do that much. Like, what are we supposed to do about actual laws being passed? Most of us aren't going to do well in jail. People who have disabilities and stuff can't get arrested because they are, protesting against what the system is putting in place and stuff for them. Like, it's dangerous. And I'm not entirely sure, because it's kind of hard from like a creator standpoint, whether or not I have seemed a little bit different in my last videos, probably like the last 2 weeks or so. But I've definitely felt different because some really rough stuff's been going down in my life, honestly. We had found a house. It was well under budget, and we got all the paperwork done. We spent weeks and weeks doing everything we needed to. We got the inspection done. We got everything. We even had people look over the inspection report with us to make sure everything checked out, and people were like, yeah, it looks pretty legit and stuff. Everything was fine, and the day before closing, we have these contractors come out just to see, like, estimates on painting the place and just little stuff like that for after you move in. And they went into the crawl space for something. And mind you, the people who did our inspection went into the crawl space. This was not, no man's land. They actually went in there and checked around and said that for the most part, things were fine. They saw no visible signs of anything bad. Within minutes of entering the crawl space, these contractors had to come back up because, in their words, and they showed us the photographs, there was so much black mold that the insulation was peeling off of the walls and they couldn't breathe. It was a hazard. They said they didn't feel comfortable with us living there. They were afraid that it did not look safe at all, that the amount of work that was going to have to go into fixing all the insulation that was peeling off and to just make it a hospitable place was going to be almost $5,000, which we did not have left after everything else that we were going to need to do for closing and stuff. The day before closing, and we were like, well, shit, what do we do? And they were like, I mean, that's ultimately up to you. We're just contractors. We can't convince you to stay or go. But frankly, we don't even feel that we would be comfortable living here. So, just understand it's not a safe place to be. You'll probably have to get this situated pretty soon. And so we had to end up pulling out after being that close, a day away from closing on what should have been our first house. We had to pull out and decide to not live there anymore because it was too much of a hazard. And we've been completely devastated. It was at the end of that loan term. So the loan got canceled, which sucks. The people who were working with us under the loan were extremely nice. They were like, we completely understand that this was not your fault, but the loan is expired. So if you need another one under us, we're happy to help you. We know you're good for it, but you're going to have to basically start over again, which means like another credit pull and shit. And we're just like, this is never going to end, is it? We've been working since fucking early January to find a house with more than enough money that we should have by now, but there's always a problem. These people want to sell these $150,000 houses with like 200 grand of work that needs to get put into them, and I'm like, no, it's not worth that much then. Knock the price down. It's so horrible. And even if there is nothing wrong with the properties, we're consistently outbid by, again, these people doing like $100K over asking price. We can't afford to do that shit. Almost nobody can afford to do that shit. And even if they can't afford to, why would they be in this little rundown house in the woods from like 1994 if they can afford something a lot nicer and a lot better than that? Like, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, we've been having a hard time. Now, it isn't completely hopeless for us because we got I think it's pronounced a chattel, I'm not sure, loan. Basically, that's a loan that covers anything that can be moved. So like machinery, mobile homes, blah, 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 whatever. There are some empty lots in the area that we want to live that our realtor found for us. And what is amazing, where we got really lucky with our realtor, is she was like, my advice, based on the amount of your loan and the type of loan it is and everything that's happened to you, is to call them, tell them you want a certain piece of land, go to the place that builds the homes and have one custom built to your specifications, especially since one of you is disabled. It'll take about 2 months, but it's going to be like your forever home. You'll have basically had it built exactly how you want it to. It's like a dream come true, basically. And it's going to be put on the lot. Unfortunately, she won't really be able to help us that much anymore because that's not, something that she does in the business that she's in, but she's still helping us with it anyway, which is pretty awesome. And so that's probably what we're going to do. It's not hopeless. It's kind of nice that we'll potentially be able to have a house built exactly the way we want it to be built, but what sucks is that we are starting completely over again from scratch, basically, and that we potentially are gonna have to wait another like 2 or 3 months before we can move, and my partner works 5 hours away from where we live. I'm gonna tell you, having to drive that far since November to go to work has been rough on her. This week alone, she has 3 different doctor's appointments because just everything has gone wrong pretty much. And I mean, before this job, we were in poverty and she had to neglect a lot of her health. But we're getting that sorted at least. And then we can get a hold of the realtor, see how things are going, see what the status of everything is, and if we can view any land or anything like that, see if we hear back from the people who build the houses, all that good stuff. So like I said, it's not entirely hopeless, but I mean, I'd like to hope a lot of you can't blame us for being kind of upset, being kind of depressed. We self-isolated for like a week and a half because we were just like, I can't do this. Like, it's too hard. Like, it's a lot. There's been a couple moments where giving up has been tempting, but we also know if we stay where we are now, life's going to be even worse. This area is getting extremely gentrified. They're doing everything in their power to chase away the poor people, the black people, the queer people, and the non-Christian people, the non-conservative people. Like, it's blatantly obvious that's what they're doing. And I'm like, yeah, frankly, I don't feel very comfy living in a place like that. And for all their nonsense and gentrification, pretty much everyone around here pays like $9 an hour, and I'm like, yeah, so I'm gonna be in poverty living around a bunch of Trump thumpers. Nothing. So that was my very rambly get ready with me adjacent video. Sorry about the fact that it was kind of all over the place. It was just one of those days where I was sitting alone in my house getting ready and just had some random rambly stuff on my mind, so I figured I'd get it out in video format. And hopefully you got some enjoyment out of it. But other than that, do something that makes you happy today, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And I'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.